Excellent. Welcome, everybody. And thank you for joining. It's not like we have another event that we're competing with here. Uh, so I appreciate your attention and coming on board to hear me speak a little bit about what's going on in the business world, but more importantly, how it applies to you and changes that you might want to think about with respect to your business. I'm working with a lot of businesses right now that are coming out of the pandemic, like everybody else, or hoping to come out soon. And there's a number of things that are working. And I'm a big believer in tools. Okay, working with a specific tools that we know work and have a process attached to them, so that you can leave a workshop. We're calling this a webinar, but it's really going to be more of a workshop today. And you can leave this knowing full well, okay, that you have a path that you can run on. So the three areas that I want to talk about today is perception, planning, and process. And the goals for today, and these are my goals, okay, and looking to achieve this with you is, number one, reframe your perspective as to what is actually possible. All right, we're all coming through a very, very interesting time. We all have to, re-gauge our capabilities, our capacities, and we have to gain a new perspective on what really is possible. Second goal I have is to focus on teaching you, okay, a tool that we use with our businesses to create a one-page business plan. And I'll get into more detail as to why this is so important. But the old saying, let's get everybody on one page, right? Well, where's the page, right? Most people say, let's get on the same page. By the end of this, you're going to see, we're going to have a page, okay, that you're going to be able to work with. You're going to be able to hand over to your staff, and everybody be on the same page. We also want to talk about adjusting our process of doing business, okay? How we're looking at business a little differently, what things we might need to change, and what we need to adjust in our business. So those are three keys that I want to focus on today. The fourth bullet you see there is learning a proven formula to overcome resistance to change. I call this my secret formula, even though it's not very secret. But you're going to, at the end of this workshop today, you're going to want to make some changes and need to get some pushback from yourself, possibly, and even from some of your teammates. And we're going to need a method, okay, of overcoming that resistance. So in the chat box, you'll see there is a workbook that you can click on the link and it'll take you out to a Dropbox. Don't worry about that for the moment. This is something that you'll use on the takeaway. We'll go through a couple of exercises today, but you can pretty much do that with a blank paper and pencil today. And then when we're done with this, and hopefully you walk away with some action items, you can go back and you can grab, and they're just really worksheets. It's nothing dramatic, but it just makes it easier to implement some of the things we're going to talk about today. If you have any questions as I go through this, we do have a chat box that you can put your questions in. I know Len and Ben will be monitoring that. I'm looking at it also, but as I'm speaking, sometimes I tend not to look at the chat box. So if you do have any questions, please feel free, throw them out there. Okay, so the three key shifts I just talked about: one, perspective on your business; two, we're going to come up with a simple plan; and three, okay, is going to be looking at your process. So let's dive right into the first one, which is perspective, right? How we view our business. And there's an old saying, in fact, it's even a book by Marshall Goldsmith: what got you here will not get you there. All right, it's the same old thinking is not going to necessarily work in the marketplace and in the economy that we're looking at going forward. If I learned anything over the 3 decades that I've been an entrepreneur, I've learned that the vast majority of our stress, the vast majority of our anxiety as business owners, as executives, even as employees, comes from lack of clarity. And we're in a situation right now where we have lack of clarity on so many fronts, right? Between the pandemic and the changing of the administrations and the economy, all the things that are going on right now, there's not a lot of clarity out there. And that does create stress. So one of the things we want to talk about today is we want to see if we can rise above the fog and try to get some more clarity in key elements of our business that we can control, so that we can reduce the stress, so we can get more effective in everything we do. So as I just said, the old days are gone. Same old thinking, you're going to get the same old results, and they're not going to work in this marketplace. I love this saying by Albert Einstein: "We cannot solve our problems with the same thinking we used when we created them." I like to change this up a little bit, and I like to remove the word problems and call it situations. I guess it's apropos at the moment with what's going on in Washington, D.C., that when there's a problem in the world, the staff at the White House does not go into the problem room. They go into the situation room, right? So it's a semantic change that I'd like you to think about, but start to view some of your problems as not really problems, but as situations that can be fixed. So again, it's a minor little change in the way you perceive what's happening in front of you, but think about going into your situation room and not having to solve problems. There's always going to be things that come up in business. We all know that. And what truly distinguishes the good from the great and the great from the good is the way they handle those situations and make changes. One of the things that we found out over this past year, and I love this saying also: anything is possible, everything is not. Right? We can't do everything. And in this past year, it seems like, our lives have shifted, frankly, in that direction, where we're doing more things that we very often are not qualified to do, right? I mean, even what we're doing right now, how qualified am I to be doing a webinar, right? Virtual training. Well, I'll tell you what, a year and a half, 2 years ago, I didn't even fall into my brain that I was going to be doing these types of things. So we're all doing a lot of things right now. And we have to start to think that, you know what, anything's possible, but we have to start to narrow our focus and our thinking. And unfortunately, we have this built-in expectation that it's all me all the time, especially if you're a small business owner. And I know we have a mix of people on this call today, from business owners to some banking executives, some professional service providers, CPAs, attorneys, and so forth. The thinking, okay, as an entrepreneur and as a business owner, it's, if it's to be, it's up to me. And I know I lived with that. I lived with that most of my career, that I took full responsibility for everything that was happening in my business. If it's to be, it's up to me. And what do you wind up doing? You wind up working harder. Okay, you wind up doing more, all right? And you get to a point where there's just so much you can do. So I like to use this analogy, and most of you probably know who this is. This is Lance Armstrong, right? Very, very strong rider, the best in the world. And I know you strip away all the other things that he did with respect to doping and all the things, but the bottom line is I like to use this as an analogy, because most of the people on this call right now are strong riders. They're good at what they do. And Lance Armstrong is a great example that if he wanted to get better, okay, at what he was doing, yeah, he cheated and so forth, but you get to a point where, you know what, there's just so much you can do personally, right? If he took his body fat down from 7% to 6% or whatever it might be, it's just going to make incremental changes. And the one thing that I learned over the years is that, you know what, you can be a very strong rider, but if you're on a weak bike, right? If I was to race Lance Armstrong and he's on this bike and I'm on my 10 speed, I'm going to beat him no matter how good he is, because I have a better vehicle, right? I'm on a better vehicle. So the thing I like to stress with people is it's not all about me. You don't necessarily have to get better or put more letters at the end of your name. You have to look at your business as a vehicle, and what can I do in the big picture to make my vehicle faster, stronger, all right, more effective and more efficient. So we want to start thinking, this is the perspective change, is we have to start thinking more about we, not me. How do you engage more people, right? Business always involves people. To get to the next level, you need more people. You can't get around it. Yeah, we can automate certain things and so forth, but as a general rule, you need more people. You want those people focused on doing high value work, right? Doing the same thing over and over again and looking for a different result. We're back to Einstein. It's insanity. You want people focusing on what they're really good at, right? And you want them to stop doing things, yourself included, right? And what you're not good at. because you can't do everything, right? So to do more of the things you're really good at and have a higher value, you probably have to stop doing some of the things that you're doing, you don't like to do, right? But you're doing them anyway because that's always the way it's been done. So take your brain a little bit and think about yourself, think about your people in your organization, and let's get them a little bit more focused. The other aspect of this that's changed is that our people are not in front of us right now, right? They're out in the field, they're working from home, there's distractions everywhere, right? We need some help there. So one of the things I'm going to ask you to do, and as a business coach, I'm always asking people to do things, right? That's my job, to enlighten you in certain areas and get you thinking. Start thinking about how are you communicating effectively with your people. One of the biggest areas of my business right now is doing assessments, behavioral assessment, communication assessments. You need to make, if you're a leader, okay, if you're talking to people and you're hoping to get more from those people, you have to be sure you're communicating effectively with them. And the best way of doing that is doing a behavioral assessment with them and getting an idea as to what makes them tick. What do they like? What don't they like? What type of environment do they need to work in? Are they in the right role? Right? So the challenge that we have, okay, as business owners and as leaders is that we have to get better at communicating people to people remotely, all right, and making sure that, you know what, they're able to effectively function in the environment that they're in at the moment. So it is a perspective change that you need to look at with respect to how you communicate with your people. So one of the things that we all know we do, especially as a small business owner, is you wear a lot of hats, right? We all heard this. And this is a great book out there. I don't know if you've ever read it. It's by Michael Gerber. It's called The E-Myth Revisited. And he talks about, 3 key areas, okay, that you need to focus on as an entrepreneur or even as a manager or an executive within an organization. The first hat that we wear is that of a technician. A technician is, you could be a mechanic, you could be a CPA, you could be an attorney, you could be a dentist. It's the things that you do. It's the technical work that you have to do in your business. Can't get around it. The work has to get done. So if you're an accountant like Len, there's tax returns that have to be done. There's audits that have to be done. Somebody actually has to do the work. But then also as an entrepreneur, you're not only doing the work, but you probably do have to manage some of the people that we were just speaking about, right? And a manager, for the most part, is looking backwards. And that's why the arrow goes backwards. You're looking at what happened in the past, the processes, what could we make better, all right? There's checklists to go through. There's things you have to think about differently than if you're a technician, right? When I first started on Wall Street back in the early 80s, what did they do? They took a good producer, stockbroker, which is what they were called back then, as opposed to consultants and financial advisors. But they took somebody who was a good producer and they made him a manager, and they failed miserably, all right? Because it's a different skill set, right? When you're managing people, it's not the same as producing or doing the work, right? I like to use a dentist office as an example, right? A dentist, all right, comes out of dental school and they have to focus on drilling, filling so that they can do their billing, right? It's the old joke. When I'm coaching dentist office, that's what we talk about. Well, that's great. They have to do that, but they also have to manage an office, all right? They don't have to do the hygiene, okay? They don't have to do the copies, make the appointments, and deal with the insurance companies and so forth. They have to manage it. So they wind up hiring a manager, different skill set altogether. So you have to think of what you're doing right now and start to separate out the different aspects of what you're doing. The last hat that we all need to wear, whether you're an entrepreneur or an intrapreneur, somebody who's working within an organization, is you have to be thinking forward, right? Where's the puck going in the future? Gretzky always used to talk about he was so great because he didn't go to the puck, he went to where the puck was going to be in the future. So when you are operating a business, especially in these trying times, we need to focus on where's the puck going, what's going to happen going down the road. And unfortunately, most people don't spend the time to do this. right? The old 80-20 rule does apply. 80% of your time, you are going to be doing the management work, the technician work. And unfortunately, the 20% of the time you should be spending looking forward as an entrepreneur or looking forward as an executive within an organization. You don't do it. You just don't do it. Why? Because it's important, but it's not urgent, right? Stephen Covey, all right? I don't know if you've ever done the 4 quadrants of Stephen Covey's effective people, highly effective people. You want to work in the quadrant that's important, not urgent. But the problem is, because it's not urgent, you tend not to do it, right? You're always putting out fires. So one of the things I would like you to think about is you have to schedule the time in your calendar to actually sit back and say, I'm going to have an entrepreneurial half hour. I'm going to sit there and I'm going to focus on what am I going to do in the future? Where's this business going? What are my customers thinking? How am I getting to my customers? Has my customer base changed? What's going on with my systems? Thinking about what you need to do going forward, as opposed to just doing the work and managing from the past data. Does that make sense? We have to spend more time, at least 20% of our time, thinking about entrepreneurial endeavors, things what we can do in the future. It's very important, not urgent, okay, but it's going to make a change. So we have our first exercise. And this is, again, this will be in the workbook, but you don't need the workbook to do that. You have a blank piece of paper in front of you, all right? You can just take out a pencil, and I just want you to list tasks. What do you do on a daily basis? Everything you do. And the best way of doing this, it's an exercise I do with all my clients, is make believe you're an attorney and you have to bill every 15 minutes for your time, all right? List your tasks. Easiest way of doing this is keeping a card, an index card or a pad next to you during this week. And as the day goes on, just jot down what you've been doing between 10 and 10:15. If you want to do half hours or hours, but do an audit of the things that you're doing during the course of the day. Because once you have that list, and again, I'm not going to expect you to do it at this moment because time doesn't permit it. But once you have that list, I do want you to do this. All right. And this is in the workbook. You're going to take that list and then you're going to start to apply them and put them into different circles. As you can see, there's an area of awesome. There are things that we do that we're really good at. All right, we are maybe the best, okay, at doing that particular task, right? And the thing about it is not only are we good at it, we enjoy it, and it gives us energy. You actually feel good when you're doing that task. You need to identify what that is, because the converse of that is you're doing things that you're awkward at, all right? You're not good at, all right? You don't like it. It's probably low value with respect to the growth of your organization, but you're doing it anyway, right? And you probably shouldn't be doing it going forward. There are people in your organization, okay, that are probably better at that task than you are, and you need to delegate it or eliminate it, all right? So when you go through your list, start writing the pieces into either you're awesome, you're awkward on the other side, or you're somewhere in between. You might be accomplished at it. You might be very good at it. And you're doing it because it has to be done and you're good at it. And I know if I give it to somebody else, it might not be up to the same standards that I would have. All right. So you might have to continue doing that. All right. But there are going to be some areas that you're just adequate at or you're awkward at. And those are the areas, those are the tasks that I'd like you to think about losing, right? Anything is possible. Everything is not. We have to start thinking a little bit more strategically at how we're spending our time during the course of the day. And, you know, I hear people talk about time management courses, and we do that. You can't save time. You can only spend time, right? It's a concept that I've grasped and I've used over the years. You can't save the time. When the time is gone, it's gone. But I can spend my time more wisely, right? I have to identify what are the most highly valued activities that I can and should be working on right now. And it has to be at a cost. Something's going to have to give, right? You saw that lady with all her hands up in that slide a little earlier, right? You can't do everything. So start to think about, what are you awesome at? All right. What gives you energy? I love coaching, right? I'm awesome at it. I think I am anyway. Uh, it gives me energy. I love doing this. All right. I don't like doing my billing. I don't like doing my books. I don't do it. I have somebody else do that. So start thinking about your business that way, and it's going to be more important than ever going forward. All right. So reorient yourself. It's not just me, it's more we. All right. Take a breath there. Okay. Hopefully, that's first change in perspective. Okay. It's not all about me. We have to get more people involved. We have to communicate better. We need to make an investment in our communication skill set. All right. You have to do that going forward. Number two, the second shift I'd like you to think about is creating a simple plan. Now, we've all been through planning sessions, and typically we're looking 5 to 10 years down the road. It's typically the executives all get together. Maybe they go on a retreat for a weekend, right? And they're thinking about numbers. We're going to do this year, this quarter, this month. It's a 5 to 10 year plan. Right? I'm not saying this isn't important. It is, okay? In some of the larger organizations, it's important that they have a 5 and 10 year plan because there's a lot of things they have to put in place over that time, especially in the pharmaceutical industry, which has changed again. Think about that, right? It used to take 5 or 10 years to get a vaccine, and look at what's happening here. Things have changed. We're not going back to the old way of doing it. We don't want to create one of these business plans that just sits on a shelf and gathers dust, right? We don't need this big, voluminous, comprehensive, complex business plan, especially in the businesses that I'm pretty much talking to here today. All right. Most people on this call today are small to mid-sized businesses, 50 employees or less, not dealing with the board of directors and so forth. It's a different mindset and a different approach. So when I say I want to get everybody on the same page, I literally mean that. We're going to get everybody in your organization on the same page. And we're not going to think about 5 or 10 years. We're going to think about 3 years max, 2 years or 3 years, but 3 years max, because beyond that is really kind of spinning our wheels and guessing. We don't control it. Even 3 years at this moment is a stretch. But for purposes of today and for the exercise we're going to do, we're going to max out at 3 years. We want to get our team involved, right? If you want people to buy into a plan, you have to allow them to weigh into that plan, right? They have to participate, right? And even if you don't do what they think they should be doing, even if you don't accept their suggestions, the fact that you allow them to weigh into the process and it gave you the opportunity to communicate to them why your process that you're going to put in place makes sense, right? They will appreciate that and they will buy in. So we need to have a tool that is 3 years in length. The team gets involved, and it not only focuses on results, but it also dictates the actions that we need to take to achieve the results. So the concept here is the following. Very, very simple graphic, all right? Very, very important to understand. Very often I come across businesses that basically are doing things. They have all these tactics and they're doing this, they're doing that, right? And they're just trying stuff. Really, it's not tied into any type of strategy. So the first thing you want to think about is, what's the strategy? And the only way you can come up with a strategy is you have to say, let's go from point A to point B, right? Very simple, but the strategy has to happen before you determine what tactics you're going to take, not the other way around. So if I was going to go on a trip and I'm going to go from point A to point B, so I'm going from New Jersey to the Bahamas. I know where I'm at. I'm in New Jersey, right? At Newark Airport, and I'm going to the Bahamas. How am I going to get there, right? What obstacles do I need to overcome to get there? Now, if I'm flying a plane, planes are off course 90% of the time. They're constantly making adjustments, right? Wind changes, pressure changes, weight in the plane changes, whatever it might be. They're always making adjustments. But the fact is, they know where they're starting and they know where they're going. And you can make the changes and the adjustments in your tactics as you're going there. So it's an important concept, okay, to grasp, in that before you start trying different things, make sure you spend some time on exactly where you're at and where do you want to go. The clarity of this exercise is so important. All right. And when you're determining where you're at, be honest with yourself. Okay. Don't BS yourself. Be blatantly honest. This is where we're at. These are our problems. All right. This is what we're capable of. These are our resources. All right. Be honest with yourself because it doesn't help kidding yourself. And then be realistic as to where you want to go in those 3 years and identify what are the obstacles in between. So I just talked about airplanes, okay? But I like to talk about railroad tracks primarily because railroad tracks, it's a rail, right? And once you get on it, you know your destination, all right? You have a focus, you have an energy, and you're gonna roll down the tracks. Yeah, a tree might fall on the tracks, whatever the case might be, but the bottom line is you starting in point A, you get into point B, and there are no turns. So the bottom line is think about setting your tracks as to where you want to go in the future. So we have an exercise we're going to do. And this again, you can do this clearly with just a piece of paper. All right. In the workbook, you got this little piece of paper in there already printed for you. But I want you to be clear as to the reality of where you're at today and where you want to be in 3 years. Right. So we're going to go from reality to results and think about what's in the way. What's on your railroad tracks? What's in the way? Right? It's not a concept that you should take lightly. You need to spend the time thinking about that. Good question to ask yourself is, why aren't I there already? Why am I not there? Right? What's been stopping me from getting from point A to point B? That's a good place to start, and it'll get your brain rolling with respect to what are the obstacles you need to overcome. Right? So when you do this exercise, spend the time. This is my reality. And when you're doing the results side, let your mind wander. Okay. Think about all the great things that you'd like to be doing in 3 years. How big is your company? How many employees do you have? What are you selling? What services are you offering? What are your numbers, right? What are you doing in gross sales, net sales, right? Get as visual as possible. I even tell some of my clients, focus on your life. Where are you living? What vacations are you going on? What's the reality 3 years from now in your life? Because we're going to take that 3-year vision and we're going to put it into a one-page plan. It's a one-page action plan. So you're going to take the results from the previous page and you're going to put it into your 3-year vision statement here. In 3 years, this is where I plan on being. And get as visual as you possibly can. That clarity is so important to spend or to achieve in spending the time doing this. So write it down, go through the list, and then the next quadrant over here is what do I need to do in the next 12 months that's going to be consistent with getting me to my 3-year vision, right? It's a milepost on my railroad tracks. What do I need to do? And let's get specific here with numbers now. All right. If I'm going to do $20 million in sales in 3 years and I'm doing $3 million this year, what is realistic to do in the next 12 months? Write it down, right? What's your business look like? What type of products are you going to be selling? What services are you changing? Get the goals specifically in your 12-month plan. Now you're set up to start to say, okay, what do I need to do? All right, this is where I want to go. What do I need to do? So we drop down to the bottom of the page. What do I need to do in the next 90 days? What projects? Now, we talked about becoming a better communicator, possibly with your staff that's out in the field. Well, what skill set do you need to learn? All right. What tools do you need? Maybe you need some sort of a software. You need some sort of a communication package, a CRM system. Okay. Whatever that project needs to be to move you towards your 12-month goal, which is consistent with your 3-year vision, you need to write down in here. And it doesn't have to be a lot of things. It could be 1, 2, 3 things that you're going to do over the next 90 days that's going to drive you to your 12-month goal. All right. I hope that makes sense. It's not goals. Okay. Yeah. If you want to put in a quarterly sales goal, something, that's fine. But it's the projects. It's the things that you need to do to move down the railroad tracks to get to your 12-month goal. Then, once you have those 90-day projects already established, what am I doing this week? Okay, this week, that's focused only on the 90-day projects. This is not your to-do list. And the way this page is set up, and I don't have one here in front of me, but this is the same size as a 3M sticky note. All right, so if you're looking at this on Sunday night, Monday morning, whatever day or night you want to look at this, the only thing you need to change week to week is here, right in this one box. What activities, what actions do I need to take this week that's going to impact the projects I need to do that's going to drive me to my goals and my vision every week? Now, this one page has changed the fortunes of, I can't say how many companies that we work with at Focal Point. We use this religiously. We use it for ourselves. We use it with our clients. This works. It's simple and everybody gets on the same page. You can share this with your team. You sit there and you say, okay, folks, this is where we're going in 3 years. This is how we're going to get there over the next 12 months. Jim, this is your project. You're going to introduce a new CRM system. So you have to start to do the research on that. And you break it down. And this week, these are the things we're going to do. Now, again, not your to-do list. I don't want you to, everybody has to return emails. Everybody has to deal with customers. Everybody has to do this is simply a handful of actions. Could be one, could be two. That's going to drive your 90-day project. All right. I hope that makes sense. It's kind of talking into the abyss, and I'm not used to doing this like this. Any questions out there? If there are, please just put them in the chat box. All right. Happy to answer any questions as we go along. And I'm also, of course, happy to answer any questions after this. But this is a very, very important piece to the puzzle. I really want you to focus on it. All right. So we're talking about going from an abstract plan to an actual action plan. All right. Something I think you need to focus on, something I know will change your business. Okay. I'll take a drink here. The other shift that I'd like you to think about making is in your processes. Now, it's a quick 1-hour webinar. We can't go into every one of your processes, right? So what I want you to think about is reorienting yourself as to, what's your historical system of doing something? All right. Very often, you're doing something because that's always the way it's been done, right? It's not necessarily focused on what should be done as much as what has been done in the past. And most of the time, it's the system was developed as a reaction to a situation, not a problem. Okay. It was created as a reaction to a situation that came up in the past, and it never evolved from that. We're still doing it the same way. Right. And very often it's a manual process. All right. Because it's a fix. All right. We had to fix it. It's a patch. We move on. All right. You have to start to look at the systems you have in place and making sure that they're evolving, because if you don't, you're just like everybody else. All right. You're in the sea of everybody. And really, we all know the goal is to stand out. You can't stand out in every aspect of your business, but you have to pick one or two areas and get really, really good at them. Right. So we're going to focus today on how do you become really, really good. And we're going to use an example. We're going to talk about clients today. All right. Or customers. And we're going to think about our process on how we build our products or our services, how we deliver them, how we market them. All right. It's a process. And I know Scott Bliss is on the line here. And, this is such an overused example that, nobody buys the drill or the drill bit because they want a drill or a drill bit. They buy the drill or the drill bit because they want a hole, right? That's really what they need, a hole. I'm going to ask you to take it to the next level. Why do they want the hole? What's the hole for, right? Thinking a little bit more deeply about our clients. So another exercise. Again, I'd like you to do this. Obviously, we can't do all these exercises right now, but I'd like you to do this afterwards. This one sheet, and you can see I'm big on one sheets, right? This one sheet will clearly identify how you should be approaching and talking to your clients, or creating your next product or creating your next service. I know Deb Rizzi's on the line from Rizco, doing marketing, all right? when you're talking about your target client, you want to talk about 4 key areas, right? Their frustrations, their fears, their wants, and their aspirations. And Deb, correct me if I'm wrong, and I'm happy to have you chime in here. If somebody comes to you, if a potential client comes to you with this piece of paper and says, you know what, I really need to create a marketing program designed for this target client, and here's their frustrations, their fears, their wants, and their aspirations, the marketing people love that, okay? Because that is really the message that they have to create, right? So Deb, thank you, Deb. Fantastic tool. Absolutely. So when you sit and you think about a process, all right, and again, we're just doing customers here or clients, you know, really, what are their frustrations? All right, what are you solving for? What are they afraid of? All right, what are their wants? What are their aspirations? Spend the time, that 20% of your time, the entrepreneurial thinking time, right, that we talked about a few slides back. Pull out the sheet of paper and say, okay, where am I going with my business? All right, what do my clients want? What are their frustrations? Think about it. You can do this, and it doesn't just have to be in this area. It could be in your departments, in your processes, in your departments. You know, if I were to get together with the head of a certain department and say, okay, what are your fears, your frustrations? What do you want? Your aspirations? You're drawing them into the organization, into the thinking process. And now you're getting some clarity and you're getting some focus so that 90-day project becomes so much more clear, okay, and becomes so much more palatable that they understand that if they do this, all right, they're going to achieve success. I like to call it, it's going from hell to heaven, right? If you're trying to sell somebody, right, and again, I know Scott's on the line here, Scott Bliss. If you can describe somebody's hell that they're living, you gain so much credibility with them and say, this person really does understand what I'm going through. All right. And then you just describe the heaven, okay, that you can take them to, you're going to make the sale. Right. Same holds true when you're trying to get people to make changes within their organization. Got to talk about the hell and the heaven. All right. And this little one worksheet, frustrations, fears, wants, and aspirations, is going to get you there. All right. So do me the favor, okay? Please, after you're done with this webinar, okay, and then you listen to the recording of the inauguration, as I will do, spend some time, schedule your critical thinking time, and go through this page. All right. So we talked about 3 shifts in perspective. 3 shifts that I'm asking you to take a look at. Your perspective, okay, on how you're looking at your business and your people and your communication and your behavioral skills. We talked about creating a 1-page strategic plan. All right. Nothing wrong with this, the 5 to 10 year plan. Let's focus on the 1-page plan. Let's think about our processes, specifically the clients, okay, or the customers that we're looking to serve. All right. So those are 3 key areas. Now, I know I mentioned before, okay, that I'm going to give you something else. All right. Because all of the things we talked about, all the things we're doing here is going to create change. And we all know how much people love change, right? People resist change. It's just natural. It's just natural. So how do you overcome resistance to change, whether it's your resistance to change something, whether it's your staff, whether it's your kids? I'm going to introduce you to what I call my secret weapon. All right. My secret weapon is used time and time again by business leaders, business owners, and in some case, parents. Here it is. It's called Gleich's formula for change. And it's a mathematical equation. D times V times F is greater than R, where D is dissatisfaction or pain, right? It's the hell I was just talking about. V stands for vision. Where are we going to be in 3 years? How good? It's the heaven. What are we thinking about? F is first steps. What are the first steps I need to do in order to achieve this vision and overcome the dissatisfaction? And if I do that, I'll be able to overcome resistance to change. Now, this is a multiplication equation, right? If any of these values are 0, what's the product? Anything times 0 is 0. If you don't solve for all 3 of these variables, you're not going to overcome people's resistance to change. All right. This is key. And the bigger the value, the more you can show that this is not acceptable, this is dissatisfying, this is hell. The bigger the value, the greater is going to be the product. So spend some time clearly identifying, okay, what's wrong? Okay, what's the dissatisfaction? What's the pain that we're feeling right now if we don't make this change? What's the vision? Okay, once we make the change, how much better is life going to be? Right? Why should I make this change? You know, the old what's in it for me? Okay, paint the vision as to why this is going to be better if you make the change. And this is really where management comes in here now, is what are the first steps? What do I need to do, okay, to make this better? Right? What's the first step? The fact that you came onto this webinar today, that's a first step, right? It's bottom line, it's a first step. So maybe it's a book you have to have your staff read, okay? Or maybe it's some sort of training that you need to put them through, or it's a new CRM system, or whatever it might be. But what is the first step? It doesn't have to be the complete package, right? Just get some momentum. Just as we talked about the fog earlier in this webinar, all right? The fog will eventually lift. You have to get in motion, all right? You go a little slower to begin with, but just describe that first step. And I guarantee you that if you come up with really good vision, okay, of why it's so bad here, and a really good vision of what's going to be in the future, okay, and you describe that first step, you will overcome people's resistance to change. Even works with your children, all right? If you want the kids to do something different, walk them through the formula. Don't tell them you're doing this, okay? But walk through the formula. Hopefully that makes sense. All right, so in the workbook, you have my secret weapon, all right? You're going to list all the pain points, all the dissatisfaction. You're going to list what's the vision, okay, why things can get better, and specifically what's the first steps, okay, that I'm going to take. All right, so just to recap, 3 shifts, change your perspective. Let's go with the simple plan. Let's focus on our processes. And again, there's a worksheet to do all of this. You're going to take a look at Gleich's formula for change. You're going to apply that, okay, where people are pushing back. All right, yourself included. You might have to use this formula on yourself in order to make a change. That's okay. Do it all the time. Just business is. We go into the situation room and we come up with a formula for change. One of my last slides, and I love this one. Okay, now is better than perfection. A good plan violently executed right now is better than a perfect plan next week. All right. Everything about coaching, business coaching, is to get people to move. All right. You have to take action. If you come off of this webinar and you do nothing, you wasted your time. All right. You wasted your time. And you can't get that back. All right. So commit to doing something. Maybe not all of this, okay, but grab a worksheet, all right, and spend some time doing your critical thinking, put on your entrepreneurial hat, and decide, you know what specifically do I need to change? What can I change in my organization to make me come out of this pandemic a little smarter, a little bit more lean, all right, a little bit more effective in everything that I do. All right, so the Dropbox is here. I know that Ben, you